After falling to the Montreal Canadiens today, the Oilers left with a couple of questions as to what comes next this week. Obviously, Tuesday, a big day in Edmonton Oilers land. And with that, I want to get you primed up for what we're going to hear this week when it comes to our Edmonton Oilers. Friends, this is Dolany TV. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're enjoying the Super Bowl, but I'm glad to be able to distract you for whatever few seconds you need to peel your eyes away from the game and hear what the Edmonton Oilers have going on today. Well, it's one of those days, right? Like I said, we've lost, but hey, there's still some hope for what's going to come up this week, right? Kyler Yamamoto's supposed to be back from LTIR. There's apparently players or one player going on waivers, depending what's happening. Klim Kostin is injured. How long? We're not sure. And while now, if Klim Kostin is injured and you're putting a guy on waivers and all said and done, guess what? There's going to have to be potentially a call up from Bakersfield, California. And secondary to that, there's been another weekend of rumors that I have not touched yet. And they're two names we haven't touched in a while. So we'll touch on them today. Before we get there though, friends, if you're new to the channel, that's the scoreboard. If you're new to the channel, I want you to consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolany TV. I'd love to have you aboard for more Oilers discussion. I do live streams. I do the whole gamut of everything you do on NHL YouTube. So I'd be glad to have you aboard for that. And with number one item on the day, we get into the big news, which is, what do we want to consider the big news? We'll start with Patrick Kane. I think that's why you're probably here by seeing the title. Patrick Kane was a big mention in an article this weekend by Mark Spector of Sportsnet, mentioning that the Oilers have what appears to be some kind of framework for a deal for Patrick Kane. Mark Spector's sources tell him that the Blackhawks would retain half of Kane's $10.5 million salary, take Warren Foegele and Jesse Puljujarvi to make the money work, and require a first-round pick and a prospect not named Dylan Holloway or Philip Broberg in return. And in Mark Spector's words, that is super doable. Now, friends, though, as with every single aging superstar that the Oilers are looking at this trade deadline season, there is a caveat, which is the injuries in the past, this one being Patrick Kane's hip injury that continues to occur throughout his entire NHL career at this point. So that's where we're at. That's Patrick Kane in a nutshell. Nothing much we need to know there other than the fact of the matter being that he is back on the table, and it looks like the Oilers know almost exactly what it's going to cost them should they want to make it work. That said, though, we get into the next news, which is the LTIR issue with, Kyler Yamamoto, yes, Puljujarvi, everybody involved in making that work. Now, there's a million and one ways the combinations can play out here for the Edmonton Oilers when it comes down to making the LTIR money work, right? Puljujarvi on waivers makes tons of sense, but does it solve every issue? Well, not if you're going to be missing a guy on the roster that's a great player to have in the lineup, even if he's not producing anything, although that's where we'll get into bullet point number 3 here in a matter of moments. But it's also a matter of if anybody else goes on to LTIR. It looks like Warren Foegele is going to be just fine. He played today. There should be no issue with him continuing to play. So that LTIR possibility is out the window. Klim Kostin potentially hitting to LTIR. Probably not, but potentially a situation there as well. But when it comes down to it, Tuesday is going to be the biggest day for the Oilers in a long while. From what we've been billed, right? There was supposed to be sometime this week, then it was supposed to be Saturday, and then it was supposed to be Sunday, and then it's supposed to be Tuesday, and then it might be Wednesday. This Kyler Yamamoto situation, what I keep telling everybody is if you are expecting something big to happen, I know I keep talking about big things happening because that's kind of my job, is to keep you informed with what potentially is happening with the Oilers. But what I will tell you, if you expect something big to happen, you should just expect disappointment, and you won't be disappointed, my friends, because that's kind of how this whole LTIR situation with Yamamoto has played out thus far. Now, that said, that plays into if obviously Yamamoto comes back, Klim Kostin remains injured, and the Oilers do indeed waive Jesse Puljujarvi. There will need to be a situation for the Oilers where they call up a player to play in place of Klim Kostin, and that I believe would be because Devon Shore would also be sent down at the same time the Oilers send down Jesse Puljujarvi to make the money work. Well, there's a potential here now that the Oilers would indeed call up Raphael Lavoie. We've seen Lavoie have a crazy little streak here in the past, I don't know, about 17, 18 games in the AHL. He's been above point per game. He's rounding into form. He's obviously a draft pick from way long ago at this point, but it appears that there are rumblings down in Bakersfield, California, and I tell you, I've got great connections in Bakersfield, and so far everything this season that I've been fed has hit long before the season gets going too deep, and this is where it is. The text coming from Bakersfield. There are rumblings down here that Raphael Lavoie might get called up due to the injury to Costin. Sounds like someone is going up, but not sure who. So stay tuned. This is obviously getting out in front of the news again, and just hopefully I can break something for you this way. But the Oilers looking at potentially adding a younger player, or maybe even Brad Malone, depending on how the dollars hang out, to the NHL roster in place of Klim Kostin, who is currently injured. But you lose a guy like Kostin, I believe Raphael Lavoie is the perfect fit to fill that role, simply because he's a bigger body, he's a guy that can shoot and score, he's a guy that can pass, and he's a guy that can, when he wants to be, have a little bit of a nastier edge to his game as well, from everything that I've seen over the years watching him. So that's the Oilers' kind of big nutshell moves, everything coming together, and now we get into the back half of the video here, where yeah, it's going to get a little rambly, but there's a reason for that. Is on Saturday Night Headlines or 32 Thoughts or whatever the heck it's called nowadays on Hockey Night in Canada, Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick mentioned that there's a whole bunch of teams in the mix when it comes down for the race for Tyler Bertuzzi. And it sounds very likely that, well, yeah, he's headed to the Dallas Stars to play alongside Tyler Seguin. That's the strongest connection either of those two can find based on how I was feeling they were presenting the news last night. But there is also something to be said for the fact that, well, you know what, that might not be the full case. Because teams like the Oilers are sniffing around. And obviously the Oilers, if you're looking for that top six forward, like a Patrick Kane, Tyler Bertuzzi is not necessarily the worst upgrade you could make to this team in that top six role, especially being a right-hand shot. And if you're getting rid of Puljujarvi, Yamamoto, any of those two, you need somebody that's going to fill in there, because you can't have Derek Ryan in the Stanley Cup playoffs being a top line winger for half the game. It just simply will not work for you to win a Stanley Cup unless Derek Ryan goes on like a Fernando Persani style run in the playoffs and somehow helps us to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. But even Persani back in 06, his incredible run wasn't enough to win us Game 7 against the Canes, so it is what it is. But friends, that's where we're at right now. When it comes down to it, is that's everything on the table for the Oilers. And, right, I said we're going to ramble a little bit. Well, there's something that's off the table for the Edmonton Oilers at this point, and that would appear to be Jakob Chychrun. Again, mentioned on Saturday Headlines, mentioned numerous times on Twitter today and last night. It would appear that it is Mr. Jakob Chychrun heading to the Los Angeles Kings. That appears to be how it's going to shake out here for everything, so that's going to be exciting to see what happens there, how big that trade is. It appears that Brant Clark is part of that trade package as well. So when it comes down to it for the Edmonton Oilers, was their package inferior? Was the LA Kings package that much superior to everybody else? Or was there more involved? And something that's come to light today as well is Vejmelka, however you say his name, might also be included in the package, which means there's a goaltender, Cal Peterson, I think, headed back the other way to the LA Kings. So it all comes down to that for the Coyotes and Kings, is maybe a little bit more of a better fit in terms of a trading partner than potentially the Edmonton Oilers were, which means, you know what, all those crazy private jets that I was tracking there might not exactly shake out to be the way it needs to be for the Oilers. But hey, you know what, at least we had some kind of information on something to talk about when it was trying to put the pieces together headed into this past week that has been in Edmonton Oilers land. But friends, that's every update here. You know what? I'm trying to fill a void. There's a big void in the world of Oilers news this weekend with Patrick out there in Montreal enjoying the game. So I hope you enjoyed the Oilers fanatic inspired version of Dolany TV today, trying to keep myself a little bit more on task, get straight to the point today because it is Super Bowl Sunday, and obviously if you're not tuned in yet, you're about to tune in soon, and you just needed to get your Oilers fixed before then. I'm Tyson, this is Dolany TV. Thanks so much for tuning in this afternoon. Again, on your way out, if you'd be so kind to consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you haven't already, hit the like button as well. Let me know how you enjoyed the video and get at me in the comments section below. I'm up on out of here.